Hey everybody, welcome to Fundamentals of Public Speaking. Before we can start thinking about any kind of public speech, we need to think about what it is we do when we deliver a public speech, and that is communicate. So we should backtrack a little bit and start thinking about what communication is. There's a lot of ways to talk about communication. We use a lot of synonyms, a lot of definitions for communication, but fundamentally, communication is a process. Okay. It's a process that we all pretty much could come up with a definition of, and we'd all come up with a somewhat different definition for. All right. One of the definitions that we have is rather technical, but it holds up. So we're going to start with that. Communication is a process where a sender encodes a message, sending it through one or more channels to a receiver who decodes the message while contending with noise. This is an important definition to keep track of because it tells us sort of step by step what happens. And when I say step by step, I mean sort of small step by small step, because we often think of communication as an intuitive process or an immediate process, and it's not quite that way. So let's look at this definition again. A sender encodes a message, sending it through one or more channels to a receiver who decodes the message while contending with noise. Okay, there are a couple different sections of that definition. So let's take the first one first. A sender encodes a message. The sender is the source of the message. For our purposes, the sender is the speaker. All right, a sender encodes a message. Encode means to put your thoughts into some kind of expression. For our purposes, it's usually verbal expression, but that expression might also take the form of a visual aid. It might be a graph, it might be a chart, it might be a picture or an image, it might be a video clip or an audio clip. It might be the clothing you're wearing, because that whatever it is you're wearing lifts up your speech in some way or sort of highlights a section of your speech. But either way, as the speaker, the sender of the message, you have to put your thoughts, your knowledge, your information into some form of expression that somebody else can understand. Okay? A sender encodes a message. That message is that what is being transmitted, the message, the information, the thought, the what do you want your audience to know, to have, to think, to feel, to understand by the end of your speech. Okay? We don't yet have technology to move that message from your head into somebody else's head. So you have to encode it, and then you have to explain it, and then you have to build it up, right? That's all part of a sender encodes a message. Sending it through one or more channels is the second portion of this definition. Okay, so that message, that information, the thoughts being transmitted or encoded, has to move through a channel, or usually channels, plural. The channel is the medium through which the message passes, right? So how is it you are actually doing the encoding? How is it you are getting your thoughts out to the audience? Okay, the medium through which the message passes. Language, words is one channel. The tone of your voice is another channel. If you're using humor in your speech, that might be another channel. Visual aids are going to be yet another channel. Okay? We often talk about technology as channels, the different types of technology. Everybody here elected to take an online class. Think of all the different ways messages of this class are being encoded and transmitted to you. Right? Right now, you're watching a video lecture. You're hearing my voice. You're seeing notes on a screen. Right? If you're following along with a Blackboard shell, you're using Blackboard as a channel. You are using the TED Talks and YouTube videos that I ask you to watch. You are looking at lecture notes. Right? You're using the discussion board. You're using one another. Right? These are all different channels. We also talk about the tools of rhetorical force as channels. We're going to talk about rhetorical force a little bit further, but right now, rhetorical force is sort of the sense of power and style that you use in your speech. It's things like how you use the environment you're in to help you communicate your speech. It is your word choices. It is your physical delivery. It is your vocal delivery. Okay? So far we're on the second portion of our definition. A sender encodes a message, sending it through one or more channels. Now we come to the third part. sending it through one or more channels to a receiver who decodes the message. Okay? This is the second half of the process. So just as the speaker is the source of the message, you are the sender of the message, the receiver has to do the opposite on the other side. All right? The receiver receives the message. The receiver is the audience. All right? And the audience, the receiver, has to decode the message, meaning you have to take what you hear, what you see, and make sense of that message. You have to interpret the message the way that you think it means. You have to like I said, make sense of the message. All right? You have to figure it out. You have to figure out how you understand it. You interpret the message. Okay? That's the beautiful thing about human communication, but it's also the messy thing about human communication. There's always more than one way to decode a message. There's also always more than one way to encode a message. In other words, meaning is slippery. Meaning is messy. Meaning is not always consistent. Okay? If I'm the speaker of the message, I might think I'm being very clear and communicating to my audience exactly what I want them to understand. But anybody sitting in my audience, based on their own experiences, their own likes and dislikes about my topic or life in general, or their own lived experiences, is going to come up with a whole different understanding of what it is I'm trying to say. Right? The audience might be decoding my messages and coming up with something entirely different than what I meant when I encoded them. This brings us to our very last portion, while contending with noise. Okay? A sender encodes a message, sending it through one or more channels to a receiver who decodes the message while contending with noise. Usually we think of noise as audible. Right? It's sounds, it's music, it's yelling, it's people talking, it's people wrestling in their bag or walking past you in the hallway. Okay? It might be the sounds of traffic or the sounds of family dinner. Okay? But usually we think of noise as audible. In public speaking, noise might be audible, but noise doesn't have to be audible. It's anything that distracts or disrupts the transmission of the message. Okay? So anything that pulls focus, anything that pulls attention, anything that distracts either the audience or the speaker. So if you're sitting in the audience and you're worrying about a test you have coming up later that day, you're distracted. You might not be listening as closely to the speaker as you would want or as the speaker would want. Right? You might be hungry. If you're hungry, you might be thinking about when you can eat lunch or breakfast or dinner. Right? If there's something you're doing later that day and you're really excited about it, that can be distracting as well. All of that is considered noise. Right? Think of noise in the communication process almost as white noise. You know how when you're listening to the radio and the station goes out a little bit and there's some static? That's white noise. It's in that case it is audible, but it's not words, it's not language. Okay? It's just something that distracts you. All right? For a public speaker, anything that distracts is noise because it is disrupting the message. Fundamentally, that is what public speakers do when they communicate. They come up with an idea, a message, they put that message into expression of some sort, send that expression through multiple channels, and hopefully out to an audience who is going to understand and make sense of their message the way they intended. Now, sometimes that happens properly, and sometimes it doesn't because of noise. All right? So when we think about public speaking, we think about a public speech as just simply one form of communication. There are many different forms of communication, but a public speech, at least the way that we're going to study it this semester, is communicating a specific message to a specific audience. It is a unidirectional flow of information. Unidirectional means one way, right? Unidirectional flow of information from the speaker to the audience. We're going to complicate that a little bit in the next video. But right now, it's a unidirectional flow of information. The speech itself is going to address very specific communicative needs. A speech stays on topic. Okay? It doesn't ramble. It doesn't go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, if those next don't connect in some way. Public speech is contained. It is structured. It satisfies certain needs that an audience has. All right, certain expectations. It also satisfies needs and expectations that the form you take, or the genre of your speech, or the occasion, the reason for which you're speaking, might have. And that varies by the type of speech that you give. And those are things we will explore this semester. All right? So for today, public speech is a form of communication that communicates a specific message to a specific audience. It is mostly a one-way flow of information. It is a process of communicating, of sending a message out to an audience so that an audience can understand it. And that's the basic fundamentals of what public speaking is. We're going to complicate that. We're going to deconstruct that. We're going to explore that and practice that all semester. All right, that was your first short little lecture video. I hope you enjoyed it.